Okay, so I took off the free arm, or so it exposes the free arm of the sewing machine. I just lifted it up, and that makes it a little easier when you sew this. You can just tuck, if you can see, you just tuck this underneath. You don't have to use the free arm, but it just makes it a little bit easier on the curve. Make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end, and this is your crotch seam that we're going to sew around. It's that U. Okay, we've sewn around, and one of the things that I tried to show you, is hard to tell, but when you are pinning these together, to see how you have the two notches, you want to make sure that when you pin them together, the two notches were lined up and the three notches, see how there's the three, were also lined up. And now that I've sewn around, you see these little extra pins that are just hanging out here? What does that tell us? Do you remember what these pins meant? That meant this is the back of our pants, okay? All right, so now we're going to take it to the serger, and we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be very careful as we go around the edges, so that, because the edges can be a little bit tricky on a serger, and have a nice seam. If you don't have a serger, go ahead and do a double seam along the crotch just for extra reinforcement. Okay, here comes kind of another fun part. Here's what they look like. It just looks like one leg. So now what we're gonna do is open it up and pull the other leg out. And we want them, ta-da! So you can start to see how the pants are coming to take shape. And I can see my two pins right back here. That means this is the back and this is the front. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to take it to the iron, and we're going to go ahead and just press these seams, these inside seams and around the crotch, so that it's nice and open. Sometimes it's good to do it, you know, if we were going to press our seams open, but we didn't, we serged. But we're going to go ahead and press it now. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pants that I just ironed, and I'm going to turn them inside out, and I'm putting it on this mannequin to show you, but you're going to want to put them on yourself inside out. And remember, we had the pins to tell us what the back is. And this is the part that I think is really great. You don't want to necessarily follow the exact pattern fold lines, because everybody's body is different and you have a different feel of where you want the elastic to be. Some people like a real high-waisted pajama pants. Others like a more around the hip. So this is for you to decide. This is where you get to decide where you want your elastic to fit. So put them on, and then fold over like this. Oh, fold over the fabric exactly where you want the top of your pajama pant to be. And then when you decide, put a pin on both sides, one on this side and a pin on this side. You're going to do the same for the hem on the bottom. You're going to decide where you want your hem to be, and you're going to fold your fabric up, make sure that it's perfectly even, and you're going to put a few pins around that area all the way, you know, so that it's even, and make sure, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell on my little mannequin, but just so that it comes off just a little bit off of the ground for you, because you don't want it to drag. So once we have them all pinned, we're going to take it to the iron, and we're going to just iron that crease in where we want our lines to be. Okay, so I've got my waistband marked where I want the fold to be. So I'm just going to slip it under the ironing board and just do a fast one of these all the way around. Okay, and so after, and you'll do that on your cuffs on your bottoms too, but okay, so now that I've got that marked, the elastic that we're going to be putting in is 1 inch elastic. So we need a casing that is at least going to be 1¼ inches wide. So we're going to use our seam gauge and mark it at a 1¼ inch. And I like to start in the back. I'm going to take my pins out now that mark the back, and I'm going to take my seam gauge like this, and I'm going to fold it under. Okay? Then this is what I like to do. I like to take my pins, and the pins that I've given you are glass tops, so they're not going to melt. And you're actually just going to push that pin right into the ironing board. And I really like this technique. Go ahead and keep one of them in the back, just so that you know it's the back. And, well, actually what I like to do is put a second pin. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side over here, because we're going to leave an opening, because we've got to have an opening that allows for the elastic to go in. So I'm going to fold it under at 1¼ inches. And the instructions that you have might be a little bit different, but this is the way I think works best. I fine tune a little bit over time. So go ahead and push that pin right down in. Watch what I do. I'm just going to put this right over it. Then when I take my pin out, I actually, watch how I do this. I just pull it out of the ironing board and poke it back up into my seam. Okay, I'm going to take it out of the ironing board and poke it up there. Then you don't have to go and repin it. It's all done. So for the back portion, see how I'm going to put 2 pins and 2 pins like this, here and here, because when we sew around, this area between here, we're going to leave open. We've got to leave an area open to put the elastic in, so we won't sew there. So that's just to remind me when I see those double pins, do not sew here. Okay, so let's go around and do that all the way around. Okay, I forgot to mention one little thing. On mine, when I folded it under, it was just like the perfect amount, but some of you may fold over your band, so it's like way a lot of fabric like that. So what I would tell you to do is you're going to have to trim some of the excess fabric. So let's pretend that this is hard to see, but pretend that where your fold line is right here, if your fabric is really long, just take your seam gauge to at least have 2 inches. I've got about 2 inches of fabric, almost exactly, if you can see that. So if you have folded yours over, so there's almost like 3 inches of fabric, you're going to want to cut 1 inch off. So what you're going to do is take a chalk, you know, have a little chalk, and mark, go all the way around and mark it at 2 inches, and then cut that little excess off, and then you'll be in good shape. Okay, so now we're going to go over and sew this, and I'm going to show you how we're going to use that special foot. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can sew this so that you have a beautiful, nice, straight seam. So I'm going to take the things off my machine to utilize the free arm. So if you have a free arm, go ahead and do that, and slide the circle underneath your free arm. If you can see that, I don't know if you can very well. See how you slide that underneath, and then bring this up over so it's a circle around. And we're going to start where we had our 2 pins at the back. And what we want to do, this is one way. If you don't have any of these extra little feet like we talked about, this number 10, or one that looks like this, similar to this, that has the rolling wheel, you can use your foot on your machine like this. And what we're going to look for on here is, see the left toe of our presser foot. We're going to guide or line that left toe up with the fold. Can you see how the fold of my fabric right here lines up with that? Now the second step is we're going to take our needle and move it all the way over to the left. And so as you're going around, you can have a guide. So you're going to keep this fold right to the edge of your left foot here, so it's nice and straight and your needle is all the way to the left. But I think what I prefer is actually using my special edge foot. And this one on a Bernina is a 10. And I'll show you how the other ones work as well. The other one would be this foot. So what we do on this, can you see this little bar that comes down? This bar actually is going to be my guide that's going to follow right along the fold of my fabric. And now what I'm going to do is move my needle over to the right. And I'm going to move it just a couple little slots. And that way it's going to be really close to the edge. And then I'm going to go all the way around, leaving the gap and the opening. Okay, so here we go. I want you to see how beautiful that stitch is. Can you see that? See how close it is to the edge? And it's all the way around, and it just looks so professional. That's why I love that foot. So I'm going to show you if I were going to do it on another type of machine. So this is the foot that we put on. Let me turn it over here so you can see. And I'm just going to turn this dial so that this little white, can you see that little white little tongue that comes down, goes over to the left. And that little tongue that comes down, that is going to line up exactly with my fold of my fabric. And if I put it over to the left far enough, I think I'm going to go over a little bit more to the left. I'm just going to twist it. Then my needle is going to go right where you just want your needle to go a little bit over the edge. And that's how you determine, is just by adjusting that screw. And that's how you can get it. And if you follow that edge or that little tongue all the way to the, so it touches, butts right up to your folded corner, you're going to have a beautiful seam. Okay, so we're ready to put the elastic in. We're going to do that now. And I was just going to show you a couple things. Our elastic is 1 inch wide. And when we folded this down, do you remember how we measured it at the ironing board, and we made it 1.5 inches wide? Well, our elastic is 1 inch. So you can see how there's a little bit of wiggle room. And I think for beginners, that's good to have a little bit of that extra wiggle room. So you know, in case your seams aren't quite as straight, 1/4 inch. Okay, so now we're going to add our elastic in the casing. So we're going to take our big safety pin and pin it through the end and secure it. Then we're going to find that hole in the back. Do you remember how we left that open? We didn't sew, and we did this before on our cinch bags that we made. We're going to just put that in and go all the way around. Remember, we push on one side, we push as much fabric on the safety pin as we can, hold it tight with this hand, let go with this hand, and pull it. Then we're going to hold it tight with this hand, push everything we can, as much fabric as we can on the safety pin with this hand, hold this hand tight, let go of this hand, and pull it.